Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. In this one I'm working on a beautiful Labradorite necklace pendant. To get started, we're going to be cutting 4 pieces of 18 gauge wire, about 8.5 inches long. Once we have all the pieces cut, then we're going to take our 26 gauge weaving wire. We're going to be using 2 of the 18 gauge pieces. We can set the other ones off to the side for right now. We're going to be using them when we reach about the middle, but for now we're just getting started with these 2. If you've watched my previous videos, I'm doing the same wrap that I did on the band of those rings. So basically you're wrapping it around one of the wires, then wrapping it around both of the wires, then wrapping it around the top wire. This is just a simple 2-strand weave, so I can actually include a video in the description that will help any beginners that may be learning this pattern, so that way I don't have to go into too much detail. The video that I'm going to be attaching is actually what helped me learn when I was, first getting started. Great tutorial and very helpful, very insightful, and she does a little bit more close-up images, so if my camera is a little bit too zoomed out or you can't exactly see what I'm doing, that can kind of help fill in that gap. I'm still new to wire wrapping videos, so bear with me as I'm trying to figure it all out and make sure that I have my camera in the right place where you're able to see what I'm doing. And towards the end of this video, I do apologize in advance, but the end of the video, I don't know what happened, but my camera looks like I filmed on a potato. It is so absolutely blurry and really hard to see, so just bear with me. I can try to explain it a little bit more. A lot of this is very repetitive, so at least it's not too bad, but yeah, the end of the video, I don't know what happened. This is all trial and error for me, so again, just bear with me while I'm, still new and figuring this out, but I would really like to put out more wire wrapping tutorials coming soon. I had taken a little time away from doing the tutorials because I had a lot of things happening in my personal life that I needed to take care of and address, but we are back at it and better than ever. I hope to have a little bit more consistent videos coming out for you soon. Also, something coming out soon is I would like to start doing lives of my wire wrapping, so that way if you had questions while I'm working on something, I can answer them for you right there in the chat. It would just kind of help build the community. Here's how she's looking so far. So far the weave is at about 1 inch in length. We'll hold up the stone to measure, but basically it's going to be about the length of one side of the stone. I'm just doing a couple more wraps around so that way I have a little bit extra to work with in length. And then we're going to be adding on our third 18 gauge wire that we had cut by placing it at the bottom, and now that is going to become the first wire. You're wrapping it around the first wire, then around the first and second wire, then the second and third wire, and then as you're wrapping it around the third wire, then we're going to add in the fourth 18 gauge piece and wrapping it around 3 and 4, then around just 4. Another thing I'm doing a little bit different about this part of the necklace is I'm also wrapping it around all 4 wires after I do that pattern. So I'm just going to repeat it back. I wrap it around the first wire, then I wrap it around the first and second wire, then I wrap it around the second and third wire, I wrap it around the third and fourth wire, I wrap it around the fourth wire, then I wrap it around all 4 of them, and then start back at the bottom with wire 1. And this is just going to break up that pattern and give it a little bit more definition. I'll show you here. And that's what the back looks like. You'll repeat this pattern about 4 or maybe 5 times, just long enough to fit most of the bottom side of the crystal. I just keep using my fingers and keeping the pattern tight, so that way there's no space between the wires. You just want everything to be very neat and aesthetic, so if you have too much gapping between your wires, it could also make for an uncomfortable wear. But here's how it is looking so far. And then we're just kind of eyeballing it, but basically measuring the crystal just to make sure that the weave is enough to go around it. You want to go from the very center of the crystal at the bottom and make sure that one side would be tall enough to fit all the way back around to the top of the crystal. Then we're separating the first and the fourth pieces, basically those pieces that we added. We're just going to bend them outward, and we're just going to continue doing the first steps all over again. So we're doing the first wire, then wrapping around both, and the top. So we're just going back to the original pattern for the other side of the crystal. This part can get super repetitive. We've already been doing it for a while, so you should be good on this pattern. You can fast forward to 10 minutes and 30 seconds if you like. That way it just kind of skips this boring part where you've already seen it. So while we're just going through these motions, I figure I can also talk a little bit more about my business. So my business and brand is Gina Inc. I make different wire wrap pieces. I do necklaces, bracelets, rings. I do different custom work. People have given me crystals and asked me to wrap them. So I do all different types of stuff involving jewelry. I'm located in South Jersey, and I do different pop-up events between spring and fall. So I'll have a table set up with my pop-up canopy, and yeah, I do different street vendor events. I started my business during the pandemic, like many other small business owners and creators out there. When I first started, I had so many different products. I was really all over the place, and I didn't quite know what I enjoyed making just yet. So I started doing everything. I was making candles, I was doing energy cleansing kits, tarot boxes, wooden jewelry boxes. I was just pretty much creating anything that came to me. But I really started narrowing it down and realizing that jewelry was more my passion, that I really enjoyed making it. So that's kind of where the focus and shift of my business has taken ever since. I am also in process of starting a new business with my best friend Alyssa. We're going to be creating a Patreon account called Enchanted Empowerment, and we are going to be creating a community for people who are interested in spirituality and self-growth, self-improvement, a little bit of witchcraft included. So check us out. We will be dropping more information on that soon. Alright, and here is how it's looking so far. We have both sides just about finished. I just maybe have a couple more wraps to do on this one side to even it out. I feel like the first side always works up super quickly, and the second side always seems to drag on and feels like it takes forever. It takes even longer than the first half. But while we're waiting for this half of the pendant to be finished, go ahead and drop a comment with your 2025 New Year's resolution. What do you want to see in your life in 2025? For this year, I have a couple goals that I really want to achieve. The first one is to grow this YouTube channel. I want to teach others how to wire wrap, because that's one thing that I really love about my pop-up events is getting to talk to people about how I make my creations. I learned the basics by watching YouTube, and I developed my own style from there. It would really be a full circle moment for me to take all of what I've learned and share my favorite styles with my YouTube family. And my next resolution would be to have both of my businesses grow. I'm really pouring my heart into them, and I would love to just watch them blossom from here. The sky is the limit, and I cannot wait to see what 2025 has in store. I just have a really good feeling about this year. Alright, and we are just about finished with this side. So we're just holding up the crystal to it to make sure that it looks like the sides would have enough to go around the outer edge of the crystal. We're just also using our fingers to kind of shape and mold the wire to fit around the stone comfortably. We want it to be snug, but not too tight. The piece we just created is going to be the frame that sits on the outer edge of the crystal. That frame that we created that sits on the outer edge of the stone is also going to come together at the top and create the bail, which is the piece that basically hangs for your jewelry. The other pieces that are only attached in the very center, so that first and the fourth wire, they are going to create the structure that holds the stone in place. I just removed the tail of the weaving wire that was still attached to the piece just by swinging it around a few times, and it naturally breaks itself because 26 gauge wire is very thin. So you just swirl it around a couple times and it just comes right off. At this point, your frame is symmetrical. Both sides look the same, so you have to determine which side you want for your front, what side you want for the back. I'm currently working on the back. I'm just kind of shaping these pieces, bending them inward a little bit, so that way when the stone is sitting in there, it doesn't have a place to go. Imagine that you're building a piece that is going to cradle the stone so that it can't fall out while it's in there. You want it to be bent in a way that can be structural, so you don't have to worry about losing your stone. I'm currently working on bending those pieces inward a little bit. I bent them back outward. I didn't really like how it looks, and later on in the video I end up straightening them back out. You just kind of have to play around with it and keep on seeing how you like it to lay, because every piece that I've made is different. I've done different designs, I've done swirls and stuff like that in the back. It all depends on how you want your piece to look. So that part is creative freedom, as long as your stone is secure. This is also about the part of the video where everything is starting to look a little bit blurry and becoming out of focus. I do apologize. Unfortunately, there isn't very much that I can do, but I really love the way that this pendant turned out at the very end. So I would like to continue showing the steps even though the video is a little bit blurry, just because it is a beautiful piece and you can still get the gist of what I'm doing even if you can't see it, 100% clear. If you do have any questions or if you want me to go into more detail about any of the steps, just let me know, drop a comment, and I can absolutely go back over, make a follow-up video if you need me to. But yeah, so we're just going to take a small piece of this 26 gauge wire, probably only a couple inches, and I'm going to put the 4 wires together that are going to create the bail in the next step. I'm just loosely putting them together so that way the piece isn't open and it'll remain tight around the crystal while I'm working on the front and the back pieces. I just continue fidgeting with the frame, just making sure that it's, tight around the outside of the crystal with a little bit of gap, but not too much. I'm going back over with my pliers just to make sure everything is tight and neat. This kind of locks all of the weaving that we did in place and kind of hardens it a little bit. So I just go back over it with my pliers, just bending it a little bit, making sure that it fits snugly. While the main frame is something that I use in a lot of my designs, and I just repurpose the outer edge of the frame to fit different crystals and different styles, these 2 pieces that are in the front and the back, they drive me insane. So you're going to see me finicking with them a lot, trying to determine how exactly I want them to lay. Every piece looks a little bit different because it depends on the shape of the stone, the way that you want it to lay. So you just kind of have to play around with it. Your piece may not look exactly the same as mine, and that's perfectly okay. Again, it all really depends on your stone and how you want these pieces to lay. I've done swirls, I've done straight pieces, I've done where these just kind of border along the outer edge just to keep the outer piece of the stone locked in. But you really just want to play around with it and see what works best with the stone that you're using. This design can be applied to many different pieces, which again is something that I absolutely love about making jewelry, because every piece is going to be unique. I finally straightened out the pieces enough to where I think that this looks good, and I'm going to bend them over the top of the frame and then tuck them back underneath. So this is going to wrap around the frame, and it's going to hold the back in place so that the stone cannot fall out. Then I repeat and I do the other side. Again, you're just going across the outer edge of the frame, tucking it underneath, and then I go back over a second loop and I cut it off right around where you can tuck the wire underneath of that frame where you won't see it, and that it's not sticking out the back. You're able to conceal the snip of the wire by tucking it back underneath. So I wrap it around one full loop, and then as I'm tucking it around the second time, I snip it, so when I do finish tucking it, again, it's going to be concealed by the frame. You're not going to see those little snips of wire that we just cut. This process just takes a couple minutes where you're going back over and pinching those wires just to make sure everything is kind of tight and flush against the outer edge of the frame, because we are going to be putting the crystal back in just a moment, and if there's too much of a loop, your crystal may not fit as neatly in there, because we built the frame basically to be snug against it. So we did leave a little bit of room, but not too much, so you gotta make sure everything is pinched together tightly. When you put your crystal back into the frame, it should fit in there pretty nicely, and then that's going to hold that in place while we're working on the front part of the frame now. And just like the back side of the frame that we were working on, where you just kind of have to keep on playing around with it and seeing what looks good around the edge of your stone that you're working with. This is just a process. You just kind of have to play around with it and see what looks good, because every design is going to be a little bit different based on the shape of your crystal that you're working on. I am making this design up as I go, so just bear with me. I think the next minute or so of the video is just kind of me finicking around with it and seeing what design style I like best. I do end up going with just a little bit of a bend at the base, which is going to hold the stone in nicely, and then the outer edge is going to wrap around the curve of this crystal. It's kind of similar to what I was working on the back, but this one I'm maybe just executing a little bit better. I think when I was doing the one on the back, I think I had the bend up a little bit too high, so it didn't quite sit right. But this one's set a little bit lower, down towards the base of the stone. It is kind of hard to see what exactly I'm talking about, just because of the slight blur to the video. So again, I do apologize for the video quality while I'm still, kind of figuring all of that out. When you finally get the pieces to sit the way that you want them to, and it looks nice on your crystal, then I take the piece and I bend it around. So I wrap each one around the back side, where it's just kind of crisscrossed. And then I'm wrapping them through the frame, going from the front to the back. So that way when we do cut the excess wire off, that cut is going to be along the back of the stone, and you're not really going to see it from the front of the pendant. You just want to use your pliers and help guide that wire through and pulling it tightly just to make sure everything is neat. And then we're going to be repeating on the other side. So again, we're going back over the frame, going through it from the front to the back. And that piece is going to be hanging out the back. We'll just use the pliers and pull it a little bit snugly. Just making sure that everything is now fitting the way that you want it to. On mine, I think I pulled the wire a little bit too hard, so you see me here just kind of trying to rebend it back outward so that it's not quite as noticeable. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and snip off the excess of those wires that we just pulled through, because we don't really need them anymore. I've made other pendants and designs where I have reused these extra pieces that after you kind of secure it to the frame, you can loop it back around, make swirls, make extra decorative designs. I think this one, I'm just going to leave it a little bit more simple, so that's why I'm okay with snipping them off. But hey, let your creativity flow and change your pendant how you see fit. I am absolutely loving how clean this design is coming out, and I love Labradorite. It is one of my favorite stones. The flashes in the stone are just so gorgeous, and they catch everybody's eye. Just look at how stunning this piece is coming out. Alright, so now we are going to be working on the bail of the necklace. So we are taking our 26 gauge weaving wire, and we're going to be doing the same pattern here as what we did at the very bottom center. So we're wrapping it around the first wire, then first and second wire, second and third wire, third and fourth wire, then just the fourth wire, and then we're wrapping it around all four of them back down to the first. So we are repeating this process for probably about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. You can decide on how long you want your bail to be, but just remember that you are going to be bending this in half, so however long you feel like you need, you can make yours longer or shorter. And then once you're a couple rows in, you can always twist off that little tail end of the weaving wire, because it kind of gets in the way and we don't really need it anymore. So once you have a couple rows in, it's pretty well secured on there and you can just take it right off. Every so often, just make sure you're going back over with either your fingernail or a pair of pliers and just kind of squeezing everything together so that there's no real gapping in your weaves. I think that really makes for a more clean finished product. And here is how she's looking. I'm loving the way this piece is coming out. And yeah, I'm just going to grab these bail making pliers and bend the piece at about the halfway point backwards, so that way it creates the loop. And then snapping off that excess weaving wire because we no longer need that. At this point, all four of those wires are now facing the back. So I'm going to split them and take the left two and the right two, bending them outward and around the piece. I'm also using my finger to kind of pinch the bail a little bit closed. You can use your pliers as well, but just be careful that you don't over pinch it, but you're just trying to make it kind of come to a point where the front and the back of the bail meet. Imagine the two left and the two right wires overlapping in the front of the piece. What would be considered as those two middle pieces, so the bottom of one side and the top of the other side, whatever would create the two pieces that would be in the middle if it were overlapped, take those and wrap it around the back edge of the bail and then bringing it back around to the front. I just give it a quick little pinch with my pliers just to make sure that it's tight, and then from here, I start to swirl the piece. So those two pieces that we looped back around the front, I'm going to bring it around and use my fingernail to kind of curve it around into a circular motion. And then we're going to snip off some of the excess and use our round nose pliers to make it more circular. And then we're going to take the other piece from that same side and bring it across and basically follow the same curvature that you just did for the first loop. And then we'll be snipping off the excess. We can use these flat nose pliers just to make sure everything is sitting flush together and pinching the cut pieces so that way they are not sticking outward. You want them to be kind of tucked, not necessarily underneath, but at least so where they're not sticking out. And now we're going to be repeating the same process with the other side. So basically you are going to be creating another loop or circle that aims downward towards the piece. The last one went upward towards the bail. This one we're doing the opposite and bending it downward and creating that circle with the wire. When I was making the piece, I just kept on staring at it and deciding how exactly I wanted to do this part. I could always do a larger swirl or, add in some other type of decorative design. But I ended up going with just mimicking exactly what we just did on the top for the bottom. And using our round nose pliers to just kind of secure and turn it into the circle shape that I'm looking for so that the piece sits nicely. And then go ahead and snip off any excess or any overhang to make sure those pieces are going to be about the same size as the other ones. We want it to just be a reflection of the one from the top. Hopefully having the picture in the corner really helped to give you a visual since the video is a little bit blurry. And I tried to point out some areas where we were working just so that way you were on the same page. Again, if you do have any questions, just let me know in the comments. And here is the beautiful finished product. Isn't it stunning? I absolutely love how this one came out. It is one of my favorites. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.